Hello, hello. My name is Penny Roberts, and I am the new TOSA this year, which is Teacher of Special Assignment, working in the district office. And I'm excited to meet all of you and be able to service any of your needs that you have with NWEA or IXL this year. Tonight, I wanted to let you know that we are recording our session tonight so that we can use this video to help answer any questions other people may have. I'd like to take a second to welcome Dr. Richter, whom is here tonight. And would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Penny. I just want to say good evening. Thank you for joining us today for our IXL and NWEA presentation. We hope that you will find this webinar very informative. And it is our intent to use this throughout the year to continue to promote individual student success. So thank you. And I want to thank Penny for putting this on and our NWEA and IXL representatives for being here tonight.
Happy to help. Happy to be here.
So let's welcome Morris from IXL. He's going to do the first 30 minutes of our session today to answer those questions. As you have questions, if you put them in the chat, he will do his best to address them after he does a little bit of an overview of IXL to just give everybody a little bit of a background. And then at the 30-minute mark, we're going to switch over around 7:30 for our NWEA. Okay, and then we'll have Ms. Danielle present. All right, go ahead. Take it away, Morris. Welcome, welcome.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Give me a quick second. Nice to meet everyone. I am Morris with IXL, and I know we're going to be addressing a lot of parents here, so I'm going to run you really quickly through sort of what the district gets to see by using IXL, how teachers might use IXL, and then I'm going to jump straight into what parents can do to help their kids that are using IXL. So first off, IXL has a ton of awards and research. I don't need to jump through all the list, but there's a ton of research that backs what IXL does, and it is an e-learning platform. And IXL is not just IXL. We are a family of brands. I'm sure a lot of you have heard Rosetta Stone. We are part of Rosetta Stone, Spanish Dictionary, Wyzant. So there's a lot that kind of goes into IXL as a platform as a whole. And in California, we're at about 1 in 4 schools. So a lot of students use IXL. So if you haven't heard of IXL, it's sort of blowing up. You're going to hear about it all over the place now. Now, I want to jump into some of the analytics that the school and the district is going to see. Once again, not going to spend a ton of time on this, but as your student works in IXL, what the school and the district gets to see is a ton of data that they could then utilize to make the school better and make the district better as a whole. So every time a student takes a diagnostic, they'll gain access to that information so that San Marino can make those calls as to where the resources are best spent. They get to have screeners that will really show you which students are at above or below grade level. And they get diagnostic levels, which we're going to talk a little bit about today because from the parents' focus, this is where I think there's a ton of value for you as the parent. So once again, that's a real high level overview. There's a ton of back-end information that your school is going to get access to. But for today's conversation, I want to focus on what the parents, what the students will see, and once again, what you can be doing at home with your child to make the most out of IXL, to make the most out of this pretty amazing resource that you're given access to. So when you jump into IXL, and as soon as your child logs in, this is their dashboard. This is what they'll see. The first thing they're going to see is recommendations that are coming from the teacher. So each of these starred skills is something that the teacher recommended for Molly. This is our fake student for the evening. I'm going to jump into a skill plan just to show you. Now, there are a few different skill categories up here. I'm going to focus solely on math just because, I like math and want to make it easier on me. But let's go ahead and choose a math subject, and I'm going to show you what a skill is going to look like on IXL and the resources that are available to the parent so that they can support their child. So I'm just going to select show numbers on 10 frames up to 20. And this is an example of an IXL skill plan, of an IXL skill. Now, this is a third grade student, so this is a third grade skill. Once again, really easy for the student to answer the question, and then it just says put 2 dots in the frame. So I'll put 2 dots in the frame, and you can answer the question relatively easily. There's no distracting ads, nothing to really distract the student. Something that we are implementing at IXL, and it's already launched on a lot of platforms, is access to 50 languages. Now, this is something that a teacher is going to need to turn on, but let's say you have a Spanish-speaking child at home, and you want to be able to provide support to that student as well. All you need to do is click that little button up there, and now it's completely translated into Spanish. If you wanted it translated into Chinese, it could do that as well. There's 50 languages. Don't ask me to list the 50 languages. I didn't know there were 50 languages, but there's 50 languages. And all the teacher needs to do is turn it on. Now, I'm going to go back to English. Something else that you as the parent can utilize. I have parents that are using IXL to help their child with calculus, even though they don't know calculus themselves. And the resources here are what allow the parent to operate sort of as like a tutor that they might not otherwise have access to. Something that you'll see at the very top of almost every skill plan is a learn with example. So before they jump in, if your child is having some difficulty, convince them to click this learn with example button. It'll give them a clear breakdown of what needs to happen. Now, this is a relatively simple skill. I could jump into a harder skill just so you can kind of get a sense of what you're going to see in a moment. But it gives you that skill plan, that it gives you a breakdown of how to answer this skill. A lot of questions. This one's a little bit easy, so we don't have a video for it. We'll also have a video button right at the top. So if you want to learn with your child, click that video button, and it's going to take you straight to a video that our creators made specific to this content. And there's a little work it out section. So there's a ton going on right on the skill page that you can use to help your child really thrive in this environment. So if they're struggling and they're in IXL, tell them to click learn with an example. Click the video that tends to be locked in here, or click one of these work it out. So there's a ton that your child has resource access to in the
Hello.
skill plan. Oh, yes.
I'm so sorry. I cannot put the question in the chat box because the chat is disabled.
Uh-oh. Penny, can we enable it? Oh, Penny, I think you're muted.
Kwok, are you online? Would you be able to assist?
I'm talking to him, so I'll be able to have him help. So we'll be all set. Continue on and we'll get that fixed.
Okay,
Thank you so
perfect.
much.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for letting us know. So that is the skill, and it's, once again, a very simple environment for students to answer questions in. But that's not all of what IXL is. Now, once again, that's a skill that I just accessed from the dashboard. The teacher assigned that to the student. And anytime you have a teacher's recommendation, it's going to be right here. But let's say your child finished all their homework. Well, IXL, because it has this really neatly integrated learning algorithm, will have a series of recommendations that your child can have access to so that they can kind of get ahead of the class. So all they need to do is click that recommendations list and start answering a few questions. And this is a never-ending list that is specific to your child. So as they work in IXL, they'll have these questions that are geared directly towards them and the classes that they're working in. If you want to just, once again, work on math, click that button right there. and it'll show you just the math categories. So IXL is a never-ending supply of questions that your child has access to. But once again, it's not limited to just this. Now, a lot of teachers are going to recommend that you take a diagnostic in IXL. I'm going to show you why. Now, this diagnostic is right here. You see how it says step into the arena to the right? That's IXL's diagnostic. Now, if a teacher isn't recommending a student do the diagnostic, parents, I totally recommend that you push your child to do this diagnostic at home on their own. It's a really quick, real-time diagnostic. It's 45 minutes for the first time that they take the test. And they don't need to take it in one sitting. They could break it up. They could take it in 15-minute increments so that they don't have to get overwhelmed, but just encourage them to take this diagnostic. After they've taken the diagnostic once, it's just 10 minutes a week of upkeep. Hop into the arena for 10 minutes. It's going to tell you to step into the arena and keep answering some questions there. This is a really awesome part of IXL that we're continuously evolving. And the reason that I think that this is a really important part of IXL is because of the action plan. And this is where I really want to focus. Our diagnostic action plan is just that. It's actionable. Instead of letting this load, I actually have Molly's diagnostic pulled up right here. Now, as soon as they finish this diagnostic, which once again, it's not a huge ask of students, 45 minutes broken up into however long they want to take it. After they've done this, they get pinpointed. Now, Molly hasn't completed her diagnostic. Remember, Molly's a third grader. She isn't pinpointed. You see how there's this oval here? It's between 170 and 260. Our grading scheme, it's criterion reference, meaning it's looking at the skills that the students are doing, and it's going to put them into a grade bucket. Now, every 100 is a grade. So right here, Molly is scoring between 170 and 260. That means she's scoring somewhere between a first grader and a second grader. If Molly was pinpointed at 260, I would be able to say she's in second grade math and she's completed about 60% of it. If she's 430, she's in fourth grade math and she's completed about 30% of it. This gives you a picture of how your child is doing. Outside of the classroom, it's even if the teacher doesn't assign these diagnostics, you can at home and get a picture of how your child is doing based on their diagnostic level. But it doesn't stop there. This is why I really love the diagnostic action plan in terms of how you can really support students. Each one of our diagnostics are going to be broken down into certain segments, like here, number of operations. Molly was pinpointed there. She is at a 270. That means she's at second grade level and she's completed 70% of second grade in numbers and operations. But I want my child, who's a third grader, to continue to advance. Well, because she's taking the diagnostic, all she needs to do is click on one of these, and it takes you straight into the skill plan that we think, that we know Molly needs to work on. And then you can go back to the diagnostic action plan and continue working on this and continue, increasing your SMART score, which we'll go over in a little bit. And once again, here's a nice little video that you can watch with your child, watch with your student, so that you can really get a sense of how they're doing. So once again, this is the dashboard that your students are going to know and love. And this is a diagnostic arena. That's where I would recommend you spend some time with your child. That's where I would recommend you use the diagnostic action plan. San Marino is doing a great thing by giving you access to this data, access to this information, but it doesn't stop there. Now, a lot of students that are using IXL may just focus on what their teachers are assigning them, or may just focus on the diagnostic arena because their teachers assign it. But for parents at home who really want to support their child and have them advance to different levels, or they know that their child needs a little bit more support in a different area, for that, we unlock IXL so that any student who wants to can access any skill in any grade level. So as soon as they go to the learning tab, they can literally go to any section on the IXL platform. So if for whatever reason, Molly, the third grader, feels like she can handle calculus, she can get into calculus. We don't lock the platform to any students because we want to give access to all the material that a student needs, regardless of their grade level. Just because Molly's a third grader doesn't mean she's at the third grade level. We want to give her access to higher information and lower information, so it could really pinpoint it and give Molly the support that she needs. So it's completely unlocked, but I could see that it might be a little bit overwhelming. Just having access to all of this, you want to click on it, and it gets a little bit unnerving having access to all this information. So what IXL has are skill plans neatly embedded into the IXL platform that, once again, all students on the platform get access to. So if you wanted to access everything in first, second, third, or up to calculus, just go to the learning tab, click on skills, and you'll see it all. But I would recommend going to the skill plans tab. This is how a parent can really support their child inside and outside the classroom. If, for whatever reason, you want to focus on the Common Core standards in math, well, all you need to do is go to the California Common Core. We have a skill plan for it. Go to the 8th grade. Molly's not 8th grader. We'll go to a 3rd grade in a second, and it'll show you everything that's within that skill plan for the Common Core. As a parent, I don't think you'd want to do this. Instead, what you can do as a parent is go to the book that they might be using in class. If you know that they're using Envision Mathematics, for instance, you can go ahead and click that. I know Molly's a 3rd grader. She's in Envision Mathematics. I know that Molly and I are working on lesson 1.1. So these are the skills that are linked to lesson 1.1. And you can see a skill preview right there. And if I'm working on this with Molly outside the classroom, in the classroom, I could go ahead and click View Report and see how Molly is doing. She's at 3% progress on this skill. She's 97% hasn't practiced it. And you can see exactly where Molly is scoring on the entire skill plan if this was assigned to Molly. So once again, skill plans, it's honestly, it's where it's at. Go into skill plans, explore it. If you know what book Molly is using, you can easily access information right at your fingertips. Something else that we have, and I know NWEA is here, so I have to talk about that skill plan. That's IXL neatly integrates with NWEA. A lot of diagnostics that students take, they'll get all this information, and honestly, it can be overwhelming. It's a ton of information that's great to have, but what IXL does is it takes that information and it makes it actionable. So we have an NWEA growth skill plan. So as soon as your student takes the NWEA, you go ahead and click the NWEA skill plan. I know that Molly's in grade 2 to 5, and I know that she has a RIT score of 176 to 182, and these are the skills that we recommend to Molly. At San Marino, some of the teachers can't even upload the skills for you, so that you get to upload your scores for you, so you get a personalized plan. And once again, same exact thing. You can see exactly how Molly is doing throughout that entire platform. So as she's answering questions here, you can watch her progress through that skill category. There's just a ton that San Marino is giving you access to by giving you IXL that you can use outside of the classroom. And that's what I really love about IXL. It's not limited to just what your teacher assigns. If you want to advance as a student, if you want to help your child, you can by using IXL and giving them access to all of this information. Something else that I definitely want to share with you is the analytics tab. So I'll jump there. This is where you, especially if you take those diagnostics that I recommended at the beginning of our time today, if your child takes those diagnostics, you could pinpoint them and you could see how this child is progressing month over month over month. And once again, It's just 10 questions, 10 minutes per week that they need to jump into that diagnostic arena, answer a few questions, and you constantly pinpoint your child and get a sense of where they are and how they're growing. Once again, Molly's a third grader. In ELA, in reading, she's at a 270. Second grade, 70% of second grade knowledge. That's what Molly has. You could see some of her accomplishments here. You can see how she's progressing, how much time she's spent. You get a sense of what skill categories she's working on. So this tab also gives you a ton of information that you can work on with Molly. Another really cool tab that I love is the trouble spot report. The trouble spot report, well, Molly has no trouble spots because she's awesome and because Molly's not a real person answering questions. But if Molly was to answer questions in our platform, a trouble spot is an area that we at IXL think that Molly is struggling with. We know that she's struggling with it because of the frequency that she answers a particular type of question incorrect. So if she answers a question on fractions incorrect multiple times, what IXL will do is it'll look at what types of questions Molly is answering incorrectly. So maybe she has a bigger problem with mixed numbers. IXL will identify that, mark it as a trouble spot. And if you go to this tab, you'll see the trouble spots that Molly is struggling with so that you as a parent can really focus on that trouble spot, focus on where Molly is struggling most, and no longer make it no longer a trouble spot. Help them get that clarity that they need. So if you're going to take anything from today's conversation, just know that the team at San Marino is giving you a ton to work with at IXL by giving you access to IXL. The dashboard, these are going to be the recommendations from the teacher. I totally recommend encouraging your child to jump into that diagnostic action plan. And please check out the skill plans. Maybe choose one with your child. If you're having a difficult time choosing one, IXL makes skill plans for you to kind of work through. You can do a weekly boost with math that IXL has designed. And once again, there's pre-K through calculus, and just choose one. Fall power up. We design these things to kind of neatly go in to any classroom. So essentially, if your child's in class, they can work on these outside of class and just get a leg up. And that's what we're really doing with these skill plans and these IXL spotlights. So definitely recommend checking out the skill plans. And something else that I just want to add, I know we're a K through 12 school. One of my cousins is studying for the SAT, and he knows someone that works at IXL, so he has an IXL account now. And IXL does give students access to skill plans that are linked to the ACT and SAT as well. So if your child wants to get a head start there, they can take an ACT or SAT diagnostic, and then once again go straight into the SAT, and they get a skill plan that's linked directly to them. There's just so much with this platform that you can do. And as long as you're there with your child guiding them, I think they can make the most of it. Awesome. Any questions that I can answer? I was not monitoring the chat box, and I see that it's at 17 now.
It's okay. We've had a couple questions. One of the questions was, is this the replacement for iReady? Because at the elementary level, they use iReady. And at the middle school and high school level, they use NWEA. So it is a switch for our new parents headed into the middle school.
Wonderful.
And somebody else asks, is it for all subjects?
That depends. I think San Marino is using it for math and ELA, K through 12. So I think that's where it's at right now.
Yes, NWEA and IXL is for English language arts or reading, and math for grades 6 through 12.
I'm sorry, just reading a couple of these questions right now.
Okay, and then
Well,
another question that they have is, do we get an email with login details so parents
ah,
can log in as well?
so you would need to collect that information from your child. So parents will not get the login information. Your son or daughter would, and you just need to ask for it and then write it down and then log in all the time because I'm always on that analytics tab of my cousin just because it's fun to watch him progress. So yeah, your child will have it, and I would ask them for it. And we are integrating a new feature that I haven't even told Penny about yet, where teachers can now send progress reports to students automatically. That's coming in the fall. Penny, you and I can talk about that later. But that's another way you can kind of get some more information about how your child is doing.
And we are all caught up. We're down to 2 questions in the bottom of the chat that, well, now 3. One is, can parents try out some of the lessons, but will it affect the child's assessment?
It would not affect the assessment. It would affect the skill that they take. So if you take the skill, whatever skill it is, I would probably recommend taking a lower level skill category that your child wouldn't see because it would save that information. Something that I forgot to mention is that we are that 100, that SMART score. It's a little bit different. What we try to do is really show students what mastery means. So the SMART score, when they take a skill, it's between 0 and 100, and we recommend students always strive for 80. That's proficiency, meaning if I gave that student that problem, chances are really high that they'd answer it. If they continue answering questions and reach 100%, that's mastery. That means I know if I give that student a question, 100% of the time, they are going to be able to answer it, no questions asked. That's the difference between mastery and proficiency. Usually what we recommend is that if you're guiding your child, tell them to go to 80. It's going to be really hard to get to that 100. It's meant to be hard. There's a difference between being proficient and a master.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here. Can you only see the grades materials and turn off the other grades so it's more focused?
So that is coming for teachers. We don't want to limit a student just because they're at, 10th grade doesn't mean they're not going to need access to some ninth grade material. So we don't limit students. Um, Teachers we are once again rolling this out. We're always rolling updates. We'll have the ability down the line to limit access, but right now it is a completely open book, and we designed it as such because we know students are at different grade levels. There could be a ninth grader scoring at a 12th grade level, and we want to give them access to that information. The same way, if we have an 11th grader who needs some 5th grade math, we want to give him access to that information as well. So we want to make sure that we're giving students access to everything so that we're not limiting them.
We have, how do my kids log in? And then it's along the same lines, even though we've kind of already answered that. We have, use my child's access to log in. Can I really use my kids' access to log in? And we have Quack from our tech department that has chimed in to say IXL is rostered through the students' accounts and students will log in or access IXL through Clever.
Which is so much easier. So if you have your child's Clever account, there you go. You only need one username and password.
And can I ask you something? If a
Yes.
parent were to log in as their child, they're not going to mess up anything. I think we have some parents
No,
worried they're going to
no.
mess up
I
their
mean,
account.
unless you really had an urge to take that diagnostics, you're not going to mess anything up. I encourage parents to explore the platform, learn about it. But the best experience is going to be right alongside your child. Sit down, experience IXL, have them click around, have them try some skill plans, experience how hard it is to get to 100 yourself, because it's truly it's mastery. It's meant to be hard. Be there with your child, just experience IXL. I think that's where you'd get the most of it. But yeah, you log in, don't worry about it. You're not going to mess anything up.
Can my child and me log into the account at the same time in different places?
I don't know. I'm assuming no, but I cannot I can't answer that. I think I think that students only get one login access. So it's either you're logged in at one location and then it's going to log you out and put you in another location. So I think you're only allowed to be on it once, just because teachers do give quizzes on IXL, and we don't want any cheating to take place. But I don't know. I'd need to ask our tech team about that. I'm just making that assumption. Will the questions get harder as students answer it correctly? Yes, they will. So it starts off as a easier question type, and then it progressively gets more difficult. Usually per skill, there's 5 different levels that a student will go through, and they essentially need to master each level before they jump up to a higher skill category. And it just gets a little bit more difficult as the student progresses. And then as they get past 90 SMART score, they enter something called the challenge zone. And in the challenge zone, because we're trying to strive for mastery, if a student gets one question wrong, it could really hurt them. So it's really about making sure that that student knows the material then. So it does get progressively more difficult. It's not just a question bank like a lot of these other platforms. It literally is learning from your child, seeing how your child's doing, and then giving them access to more difficult problems. When a child is working on skills, can they skip to the easy questions? No, they can't. So once again, it's a linear platform. So as the child works, the questions get harder and harder and harder and harder, and you'll see their SMART score climb higher and higher and higher and higher. Once they've reached 70 to 80, that's proficiency. That's when the questions really get more difficult. Is IXL only for middle school students or elementary schools? Penny, Lena, do you know? Just want to make sure I don't want to.
iReady, I know, is used at the elementary level, and then NWEA is the middle school and high school levels.
That is correct. Yes. iReady is the diagnostic tool for K-5, ELA, math, and NWEA and IXL is a diagnostic tool and learning path for students in grades 6 through 12 for, again, ELA and math.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that, Penny. Wonderful. Any other questions that I can answer?
I think our last question is how much time should a student spend per week on IXL?
Okay. Not a ton. We typically recommend that a student spend at least 15 minutes in IXL per week. Our data points to that providing the best performance at a minimum 15. Obviously, if they spend more time in IXL, you are giving this resource to parents, so why not let them use it? Your students only can do better, but at a minimum 15 questions per week is what we recommend, which typically takes about 15 to 20 minutes, but 15 questions. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question.
Sure. Will student get a chance to review the lessons they've already learned, such as when it comes to midterms? So you will see every single, it's not that type of platform. Obviously, they can go back and review every single lesson that they've taken. But it's not, you're not going to be going toward a test that you need to take. The way IXL is going to work is that you'll answer a few questions on one skill category, and then the next skill is going to be a little bit more difficult than the last, and just build up on each other. We don't have midterms built into the platform.
Thank you so much. At this time, I know we may have some other additional questions. So those questions that just came in at the end of the chat, we'll try to get those answers to you. But we need to make a switch now over to NWEA, and we have our presenter Danielle here ready to showcase that. And I'd like to thank Morris for all you've done for us. We really appreciate you being here today. So thank you for your time and your help.
Thanks, Penny. Thanks, Lena. You have a good one. Oh, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me, morrisk@ixl.com. Happy to help with any questions you all have. But have a good one.
Morris, do you mind putting that in the chat, your email?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
And welcome, Danielle. Thank you so much for being here today from NWEA.
You had it right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Larrañaga, and again, I am from NWEA. Let me go ahead and bring up my screen. So tonight I am sharing with regard to the MAP growth assessments from NWEA. And I apologize, my Zoom information is right in the middle of. So a little bit about the MAP growth assessments. So MAP growth assessments are nationally normed assessments that provide context around how your child compares to their peers across the nation with other students who have taken the MAP growth assessment. So each assessment is adaptive to the learner regardless of their baseline. It also assists in predicting proficiency on state ACT and SAT assessments, and looks at student growth over time. It additionally provides that transparency, which is really important for being able to tailor goals to meet individual student needs, giving students that opportunity to really take ownership of their own learning and maximize that academic achievement, and really being able to assist teachers in working side by side with students to set goals with them. So a little bit about the MAP growth assessments. So MAP has what it displays their students' current achievement with what's called a RIT score. And the RIT scores are really independent of grade level, and they can be used to show and compare a student's growth over time. So the RIT score is an equal interval scale, and it is really like a unit of measurement that does not change. So it does not indicate grade level readiness, so that it can be compared across grade levels. So the higher the point, the higher the difficulty level. So it reflects that student growth and provides a student's instructional level. So what we're really looking for is that sweet spot so that the teacher's able to create that productive struggle for advancing student skills and understanding those concepts over time. So MAP growth is also an adaptive assessment. So as I mentioned earlier, it really starts out with being able to adapt regardless of the student's baseline. So as the student responds to questions correctly, it increases in difficulty. As the students respond incorrectly to items, it decreases in difficulty. And so what it's really looking for is that instructional level of the student, really trying to figure out that area between what the student knows and needs support in really understanding those concepts and skills. So again, MAP growth assessments are not mastery assessments. So it really is looking for that area of instructional development for the student, really aiming at being able to identify those skills and concepts that the student could perform, really looking at that area where the students could have some background knowledge and will need some support to perform those concepts and skills. So the MAP growth is, again, a normed assessment, which gives you a context that can compare the learner growth and achievement to other peers that are utilizing the MAP growth assessment in public schools across the nation. So that average proficiency level is set at the 50th percentile, which is able to tell what is typical for a student at their grade level. So a few quick facts about the MAP growth assessments. So each assessment is about 43 questions. It is an untimed assessment. It is administered on average 3 times a year in public schools. The schools receive 1 overall score with instructional area subscores, and it is standards aligned. When students are taking the assessment, the teachers do have some features that assist them with the assessment, which if students are going too quickly through the assessment, students will receive this little sloth that comes across their screen and encourages the students to slow down and kind of take their time taking the assessment, think about what they're looking at in the assessment. And then the MAP growth assessments will cover reading, language usage, and then in math, K-12, and in reading, K-12. So when teachers get back data from the MAP growth assessments, this is what they are able to see. So they are able to look at the students, how the student is looking in regards to their growth and achievement measures, and how their comparison looks like with regard to that percentile in growth and achievement. They're able to look at those instructional area subscores and those RIT scores that we talked about earlier. And then right here, they're able to look and set some growth goals. So this is where we talked about having that transparency and being able to really set those goals with students and having that transparency and being able to give students that opportunity to start taking ownership of their learning. So this just kind of goes back and highlights that first column in comparing the growth and achievement measures, and then really, again, setting those growth goals with students, which is really important. And then moving into looking at what it looks like when teachers are able to set those growth goals with students. They're able to go in and look at setting those projected growth goals, looking at that percentile, looking at the growth over time. And then this is an example of the family report that is shared with you all from San Marino. And so in this, the top of the report is where you can find some frequently asked questions, including the question of what do achievement and growth mean from the MAP growth assessments. And then here you can lay the groundwork for really helping to connect the data, the student data in the reports as well. So with looking at the MAP growth family report, it shows the trend graph that you also saw from the student profile report. And then the growth over time that's compared to similar students across the country, making sure to note that the growth comparison period from say fall to spring, and then really looking at that family toolkit and looking into the family report that you can also take a look at. And so here are some resources that can also be shared. The student resources page, I think, is really important for families to be able to go in and look at. The student resources page really provides you the opportunity to be able to go in and view a few videos from the MAP growth assessments, really seeing what the assessment is about, what students can expect to take on the assessment. You're able to actually experience a practice test from the MAP growth assessments. Now, this is not an adaptive assessment within the practice test, but it does provide that exposure to what are some of the types of questions that students will experience, as well as the technology that they will experience in taking the assessment, and some of the tools that are available to all students when they take the MAP growth assessment. This is also the family toolkit that's mentioned in the family report. So you can go in and take a look at the family toolkit, which is a very valuable resource for you as parents. And then also in 6th through 12th grade is having that College Explorer tool, which you can go in and with the RIT scores, you can go in and enter the RIT score that you have that's coming back on your family report, and look at some of the College Explorer tools that are available that will connect to some of the colleges across the nation with regard to the RIT scores from the MAP growth assessments as well, since you're looking at that projected proficiency that's also available from the MAP growth. And so now I will stop sharing so that I can answer any questions that have come into the chat.
And so far, we don't have any questions for NWEA parents out there. Are there some questions that you may have? Go ahead and get them into the chat and we will help you.
So the NWEA score is different from the IXL score. So the NWEA score is a benchmark score. So students take that in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And then what it does is it correlates with that learning that's done through the IXL. So IXL, the students are able to go in and have activities. So that benchmark assessment that they take with the MAP growth assessment, they're able to go in and actually practice with that. And so that benchmark assessment correlates with the IXL learning that they're able to do.
Do we have any other parents that have any questions?
Danielle, it's Lena. Is it possible to get a copy of this slide deck so that we can also post it on our website in addition to the recording?
I did. So I provided Penny with a PDF of the slide deck already as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. I think I missed a few questions.
Is
Well,
the
all teachers.
is the NWEA score benchmark score across states?
Yes. So each state, because it's aligned to different states based on their standards, there are linking studies for each state. But with regard to the RIT scores, those RIT scores are the same across all students for all students across the nation that are taking the NWEA. So say students move from one state to another that are taking the MAP growth assessment, that score would translate if they were to move from, say, California to, I'm in New Mexico. So if they were to move from California to New Mexico, yes, that score would translate across states.
And our next question is, will all teachers at San Marino High School be asking students to use NWEA?
Would you like me to answer that question?
I think that would probably be a better question for you to respond to.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So NWEA is the diagnostic assessment that we are offering to our students in grades 6 through 12 only. So all teachers have received training and informational sessions on how to administer NWEA to their students. So again, all students in grades 6 through 12 will be engaging in the diagnostic 3 times a year.
Thank you for that. Our next question is, and I'm not sure I understand, but maybe somebody will understand, can I still sign on the club? If I could get a little more information, can I still sign on the club? I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's for me.
Do we have any other parent questions while we have our wonderful expert here? We're looking for NWEA questions if anybody else has a question.
Is there a breakdown when comparing test results to, comparing test results to all students across the nation versus students in English as a second, as a second language class? Is there a breakdown when comparing test results to all students across the nation versus students when? So what it does when it's looking at students who are not in English as a second language class. So are you referring, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, if we're looking at comparing students who are not EL English language learners, is that maybe what I'm understanding from the question? Versus students not in English as a second language class. So when it looks at comparing students, it does take into account, in the normed data, it does take into account a lot of different factors. So it will look at students in how many instructional weeks they receive in school. It looks at what their age is, how many, what their RIT score is. It will look at their background. It will look at different types of demographics. So when it looks at the data and it's looking at comparing students across the nation, it will look at all of those pieces of information. So it is adaptive with regard to all of those pieces. And then, so that is also why there is that growth chart for each individual student. So regardless of where they are in that percentile, it also looks at the growth of each individual child, so that it's not just focusing on just that individual number of the percentile, but it's also looking at how is that child's growth over time based on their own baseline. And so then it sets a projected growth for each individual child.
Great. Our next question is, can parents see what questions are asked and what questions their child missed?
No, so they're not able to see what questions are asked and what questions are missed. However, what they are able to see from the family reports, and even with regard to the student profile reports that come back, is it is able to tell you what the areas of development are for the student, areas that the student may need some more focus in. And so then it will provide information for teachers and for families on what are those areas of focus for the child.
And our next question is, NWEA used to determine the child's grades?
Would you
That
like?
yes.
Yeah. NWEA is not used independently to determine a child's grades. NWEA, the data that we retrieve from NWEA is to really provide supports and instruction that meets the students where they are. It is a tool that we use to look at, in addition to a lot of other metrics when looking at assigning grades to a student, but it is not the sole thing that is looked at when assigning grades. In fact, it plays a very small role in that.
And we also, and even in us going and working with San Marino to provide training, we really talk about using the map growth assessment to really help drive instruction and really focusing in on the areas of that productive struggle. How can we help use this to support in driving that instruction, working with supporting the concepts and skills that will help to strengthen students' academic growth, and not use that for determining grades.
Yeah, and if I could just echo what Danielle said, it really is to assess individual student learning where they are, because not all students will be at the same place academically or with regards to their achievement. So really finding out where the students are and providing the instruction through IXL to support that individual student need. And there's one question that I don't believe got answered. It's from Joshua. So it says, so it's not like IXL, you cannot just sign in and take a test once a week if you want, correct? So
that is correct. Yes, it is set for the fall, for winter, and for a spring assessment. So it is only 3 times a year. Schools, if they have a summer session, do have the opportunity for them to administer it over the summer. But public schools do typically only administer it 3 times a year.
And we have another question. If parents cannot see specifically what their child misses, then there seems like there's a missed educational opportunity.
And I think that's where we're able to provide that area of what students are able to focus on, and what areas their child needs to focus on for building their academic growth in regards to continuing to excel.
And is this diagnostic test the same as the state test done towards the end of the year? And is this mandatory?
So this is not a summative assessment. So it is not the same as a state summative assessment at the end of the year.
And following that up, one parent says, what benefits does NWEA assessment provide to my child?
So we feel that it really helps to provide in supporting teachers to differentiate and really support the individual needs of students, really helping to look at the strengths of individual students and really focusing on supporting that growth over time, as well as finding where the instructional level of each individual student is, to be able to continue to help them grow academically and really helping them to achieve their fullest potential in their academics. So
And
they can use their strengths as well as their areas of need to continue to help them grow.
And can parents opt out of their child taking NWEA? I
think that would be a district.
Would you like me to take that, Penny?
Yes, go for it.
Awesome. Yes. So the NWEA assessment is not a summative assessment. It's not given at the end of the year to assess what students have learned year long. It's a formative assessment. That's why it's given 3 times a year, in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. So that when students need enrichment because they're already performing at grade level, the teacher will see that, identify that, and provide instruction that meets the student's academic need. On the other end of the spectrum, if we see that students at the beginning of the year are struggling with grade level standards or certain standards or concepts, we can provide those additional supports early on. And the beauty of having 3 assessments through the year is to continuously and closely monitor student growth. So we're not waiting till the end of the year to assess a student, having an entire 8 months go by without us being able to provide supports or enrichment for students who are already at grade level. So we highly recommend, it's like a unit test that our students would take in a science class or in a social studies class. It's informative data that the teachers can use to continue to monitor student progress and propel growth for each individual student.
And will the students be able to review the questions that they have made mistakes in? Will there be any explanation about those mistakes the student can see?
So again, they are not able to see individual questions and individual responses to those questions. What it does is it highlights those specific concepts and skills based on instructional areas. So it will take, based on the different standards that are aligned for your state, and it will highlight, here are the strengths, here are the areas of instructional focus for each individual child, and lay those out for the teacher to be able to make those instructional decisions for your child.
And then we have how many hours per year are used for these diagnostics?
So each individual assessment for the NWEA are approximately 45 minutes. They are untimed they are untimed assessments. However, on average, they take about 45 minutes per assessment.
And we have questions from the same parent, so I'm just going to ask both. Are teachers incapable of diagnosing their own students' abilities that they need a standardized test, or does the district not trust their teachers' assessments? That's part 1. And then the second part to that is, has NWEA measurably improved the outcomes of students within the district, and specifically this district?
So I believe that this is the first year that it is used with 6th through 12th grade. Am I second year? Okay. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Our
I knew
first
that it was the
diagnostic
first year.
assessment was administered in the winter in December of last year, 2023. So we're starting into our second year. And just Penny, I don't mean to overstep because Penny is the expert in NWEA and has looked at data over the past few weeks. When looking at student growth and student performance from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in math and in ELA, we have seen significant achievement from the fall through the spring of the year. So it does show favorable results and that our students are continuing to learn, because it provides the opportunity for teachers and our educators to really pay attention to individual student needs and provide the needed support or instruction, or sometimes even intervention and enrichment that a student needs to continue to make progress. And the beauty of it is this data is longitudinal, so we can continue to monitor student growth from one year to the next. It's not just a 1-year snapshot. So for example, if you're monitoring my growth, you can see how Lena did in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, to make sure that I'm not falling behind and I'm continuing to achieve. And that's a wonderful piece of data to have.
And I think at this time, we are out of time. I know people have busy schedules and we like to try to stick to our plans. So if we didn't get to your question, you can contact us and we will get you the answers that you would like. We thank you all for coming tonight, and we hope that this session was beneficial to introduce you if you're new to these 2 wonderful programs. And if you've already experienced them and had additional questions, I hope that you got some of those answers today. Danielle, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Danielle, thank you for being here. Kwok, thank you for being here as well. And parents, thank you for joining us tonight. We do hope it was informative And Penny, thank you for all your time and putting this wonderful webinar together.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.